Hello everybody, this is Christian Thomas again coming at you with another video, and this video right here is going to be some serious freaking cancer. Here we have Riley J. Dennis. If you don't know who she is, she's this really big transgender SJW type, and that's all I'm going to explain before we get into the video. And you will see more of who and what she is once you watch the video. Basically, in a nutshell, she is cancer. Take a look.
Look, before we get into this video, I just want to note that obviously I'm really white. And when I talk about white people, I don't mean it in a those white people kind of way, like I'm somehow detached from that. When I say white people, I mean myself included. I just don't want it to come across as like, I'm one of the good ones, because I'm still learning how to combat racism and white supremacy myself. So, I hope that makes sense. Anyway, the point of this video is that not all white people bullshit. If you don't know what I mean, let me give you an example. Let's say a person of color experiences some kind of racism from a white person. In frustration, they say, white people are horrible. At this point, you can expect some kind of white person to pop up out of the bushes and scream, not all white people, you shouldn't generalize us like that. That's reverse racism. These white people, the ones who constantly scream, not all white people, and reverse racism, argue that making a generalization about white people is just as bad as making a generalization about people of color. They think that saying white people are horrible is just as bad as saying black people are horrible. On like a total surface level, you might think, yeah, that makes sense. Those statements are both generalizations about a race.
Yeah, they are both generalizations about a race. Saying that people of color are horrible is racist. Saying that white people are horrible is racist. Just because one white person was racist, that does not make them all racist. And for you to attach yourself to this whole white people are racist thing, whatever, that basically says that you're racist too, which doesn't surprise me because you have this ridiculous white guilt complex. I'm not sure why you're not doing anything for me, so just stop, Riley. And no, not all white people are racist, like I said.
But if you look just a little bit harder at the cultural, social, political, and historical context that these phrases are set in, it's pretty easy to see that they are not equivalent statements. I mean, black people in the US were slaves, and then they were considered 3/5 of a person, and then they lived under Jim Crow segregation laws, and even today they still experience systemic racism on a daily basis. The prejudice and discrimination that was built into our institutions and systems didn't go away overnight with the Civil Rights Act of 1965. Racism, and by extension white supremacy, both still have a deep hold on this country. To be a person of color in the US today means to live under a system that was not only not built for you, but was built to harm you. If you don't believe that people of color are marginalized and oppressed in a way that white people are not, you're just being willfully ignorant at this point. So I'm gonna assume that we can all agree on this. If we can't agree, I don't think I'm gonna be able to convince you, but there will be some links in the description if you'd like to challenge your worldview with some facts and statistics. Anyway, the point of all of this is just to give you some background for why generalizing statements about white people versus generalizing statements about black people are not equivalent.
First of all, I'm not marginalized, I'm not oppressed, so it was extremely racist for you to make that statement. And just because black people went through slavery and Jim Crow, whatever, back centuries ago or decades ago, that does not make it okay for black people to be racist against white people. And you need to just stop using systemic racism as an excuse for black people to be racist against white people. So basically, in the past 2 minutes of this ridiculous diatribe, so far I have seen you be both racist towards white people, such as yourself, and condescendingly racist towards black people. And yeah, just because we were considered 3/5 of a person centuries ago, decades ago, or whatever, that does not mean that it's okay for us to see white people as these demonized people. And like I keep saying, just drop your fucking guilt complex, you dumb idiots.
They don't exist in a vacuum. Black people in the US have been oppressed and continue to be oppressed in ways that white people will never fully be able to understand. So when you say something in 2017, knowing everything that has happened up until now, your words live in the context of this time period, in this culture, in this political context. They can't be separated from that. So let's say you're a white person and you say, black people are horrible. In a greater context, you are a member of a group that oppressed black people for a long time and continues to do so today. I can already hear the white people chiming in saying that they weren't alive during slavery, so they shouldn't be responsible for it. And like, sure, you're not directly responsible for slavery, but you continue to benefit from the oppression of black people, which has had its roots in slavery. That's a fact. And I know white people get really sensitive about this, and I get it. I used to be in middle school too. And I wanted to believe that I lived in a system that was fair and equal and didn't value me over someone else just because of the color of my skin. But then I grew up and I realized that racism was still very much alive. So I'm not saying that white people need to hate themselves or have guilt over this.
Oh my God, I'm not oppressed. I told you that I'm not oppressed. No black person in this country today is oppressed. Sure, there are some black people that were oppressed back centuries ago or decades ago or whatever, but that does not apply to 2017, you dumbass, okay? What? And like I said, like I keep saying, stop it with the fucking white guilt. It doesn't work. Just stop. Stop trying so hard to get the black man's approval. Okay? Quit it. It's pissing me off. It pisses me off every time I see white liberals, white socialists, white progressives try so hard to get our approval, look like they're helping us, but instead they're just being racist as hell. This kind of crap right here, it makes me mad. Like, seriously, I don't need your sympathy points. I really don't. Oh, I can make something of myself on my own. I don't need your help. I've made it on my own all my life pretty much. Sure, I've had people guide me and things like that, but I don't look to somebody, I don't look to a white person to help me because I'm black. What kind of bullshit is that?
I just think we need to recognize our role as people who have benefited from racism and who are a part of a group that has oppressed and continues to oppress black people. And then we need to work to fight against that. And part of what that means is that when you, as a white person, say black people are horrible, your words are just perpetuating the oppression of black people that white people have been doing for a long time. You're continuing that racist cycle. You're adding fuel to the fire. On the other hand, if a black person says white people are horrible, it doesn't have that weight behind it. The power dynamics are completely different. It doesn't perpetuate systemic racism. It doesn't result in the institutional oppression of white people. It's just an expression of anger against an oppressor group. That's all there is to it. The two statements don't carry the same weight or historical context. For centuries, white people insulting black people has led to their enslavement, disenfranchisement, and oppression. Meanwhile, black people insulting white people hasn't had anywhere near the same impact on white people. They're just on completely different levels. And it's painfully simplistic to avoid all social, political, cultural, and historical context just to make these statements seem comparable.
Oh my God, Jesus. I keep saying the same freaking thing over and over and over and over and over again. I am not oppressed. No other black person in America is oppressed. And please stop using things from the past to justify black people being racist towards white people. Racism on both sides is wrong. And I don't know what else to say to you other than the fact that racism from both sides is wrong. And right now, 2017, there's no examples of systemic racism that I can think of. Sure, there was systemic racism several centuries ago, several decades ago, but there is no systemic racism right now in 2017, I'm sorry. Continue, Riley.
The best analogy I can think of to demonstrate this kind of power dynamic in a really simple way is this. Imagine there's a queen and a peasant. Obviously, the queen has a lot of power and the peasant does not have a lot of power. Now, the peasant can point at the queen and say, throw her in jail, and it won't have any effect. The guards aren't going to listen to a peasant. But if the queen points to the peasant and says, throw her in jail, then the guards will listen and the peasant will end up in jail. Both parties said the same phrase directed towards the other one, but one of those phrases had a lot more power because of the context. One of those phrases put someone in jail, and the other one did not. If you ignore the context of a situation, you miss a huge chunk of the story. If I told you that story, but I just said there were two people who each shouted at the other one, throw her in jail, without any context, you'd probably be confused as to why only one of them ended up in jail. That's because you'd be ignoring the power that each person had or didn't have and the general context behind it all. That's why reverse racism isn't a thing. Because systemic racism hurts and oppresses people of color, not white people. While people can certainly be rude or prejudiced towards white people, that still doesn't mean
For the last time, and this is the last time I'm going to say this, black people are not oppressed. And there is racism on both sides. How many times do I have to keep saying it? And being rude to anybody based on race is racist. What else do I need to say? Damn.
That white people face systemic oppression in anywhere near the same way that people of color do. Okay, so context matters when it comes to generalizations, but also when white people say not all white people, they're usually taking a complaint about racism and making it about themselves. The only time I've heard generalizations from people of color about white people has been after a person of color has experienced some kind of racism. So, for example, let's say a person of color on Twitter tweets something about systemic racism. In response, they get a bunch of ignorant white people replying and calling them racial slurs and saying that racism doesn't exist and all of that. In response, they say something to the effect of, I am so tired of white people. They're horrible. And that's when the not all white people crowd comes in. Some white person pops up and says, not all white people are like that. I'm one of the good ones. In this way, all that saying not all white people does is absolve that white person of any guilt and make the situation about them. Why do you have a need to insert yourself there and defend yourself? It doesn't make the situation any better. It doesn't get rid of the racist nonsense that person has had to endure, and it doesn't challenge it either. It's just a very indifferent, don't worry, we're not all like that.
Not all white people are racist. That's why they distance themselves from certain accusations of racism from certain white people, because not all white people are racist. And this isn't them trying to insert themselves on some issues or try to make it about themselves, when in reality it's those people making it about white people by them saying that all white people are racist and how all white people are horrible. That's them making it about white people, not the other way around, okay?
Which isn't too reassuring, I'd imagine, since that doesn't negate all the racist bullshit that person gets. It's just a way of making yourself feel better, and I've never seen it improve a situation or combat racism in any way. I understand that you want to defend yourself, and you feel like when someone makes a comment about white people that it affects you. But the truth of the matter is that you're going to be just fine. Generalizations about white people are not going to hurt you. They're not going to contribute to unfair housing discrimination against you or lead to a racial hiring bias against you because you're white. Remember, context matters.
I can't handle the white guilt, dude. And I will give you credit for saying that black people did go through housing discrimination. However, I don't agree with the fact that you said that white people don't get discriminated against because of the fact that they're white. That's bullshit, because have you not heard of affirmative action? Sure, affirmative action was meant to boost up minorities and women and things like that. It put blacks and other people of color at an advantage, while at the same time putting white Americans at a disadvantage. I understand that they tried to keep the playing field as equal as possible. However, they gave one group of people a certain advantage and they gave another group of people a certain disadvantage. And also from a job perspective, certain jobs have to meet certain quotas because of affirmative action. They have to have a certain number of minorities because of affirmative action. And look at SAT statistics. And if you take a black kid with a, let's say, 1300 SAT score and a white kid with a 1600 SAT score, they will give the black kid more of a boost on SAT scores and give the white kid or the Asian kid a deduction on their SAT scores. And that right there is the result of affirmative action. So yes, white people do experience discrimination based on race. And I would even go as far as to say that I would consider that systemic discrimination. As far as police brutality and stuff like that, I would say that based on numbers, there are more whites being shot by the police. But if you look at percentages, given the fact that there are 5 times as many whites in America as there are blacks, I could say that there probably is a higher estimate of black people in America that get shot by the police. However, that doesn't negate the fact that black people have more interactions with the police because of the fact that there are more blacks committing crimes as compared to other races. These are facts. And like I said before, please just stop with the white guilt. It's annoying and it's pissing me off.
White people are not hurt by generalizations about white people in the same way that people of color are hurt by generalizations about people of color. Unarmed black people are shot by police regularly because of the generalization that they're violent and dangerous. White people don't have a comparable generalization that affects them like that. There is no comparison. So I get that your feelings as a white person might be a little hurt by a generalization about you, but it's not going to result in any real-world systemic bias against you. So stop trying to downplay the frustrations of people of color by saying not all white people. Just let it go. If you're a white person who's genuinely working towards anti-racism, then I don't think you would feel the need to assert not all white people at every chance you get, because you would know better than to center your own feelings in these discussions. So yeah, I think that's everything. Basically, just remember that the context of statements matter, not all generalizations are created equal, and saying not all white people is not productive or helpful. Anyway, thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you next time.
There you have it, folks. That's the end of the Riley J. Dennis video. And as you've seen, Riley Dennis is a babbling idiot, and he keeps saying white people shouldn't insert themselves on discussions when, in fact, they're the ones making it about white people. And with that being said, if you like this video, give this video a like, comment, share, and please subscribe to my channel. And please follow me on social media. And peace out.